What's up, everybody? Welcome to another edition of the Got Next podcast. I'm your host, Mitchell Baldwin, with my co-host, Donovan Moore.
Yes, sir. We back at it, man. A lot going on, a lot to talk about.
Definitely a lot to get into today. So say what's up, B.
What's up, y'all? Hoping to inform you on what's been a crazy offseason so far. Electric.
Yeah, absolutely. Off season's only been like a month so far, but obviously we had a lot go on this past week. A lot of people going a lot of different places, a lot of skill positions moving. So brand new landscape that we're looking at in the NFL. So we're gonna make sure to go through all of that for you guys today. So make sure to like, comment, subscribe, all that type of stuff. Follow us on the socials at the Got Next podcast. And without further ado, let's get into the intro.
Three-pointers. Outside jumper for three. The bucket.
Alrighty, so first position that we'll be talking about today is none other than the quarterback position, one of the most important positions in the NFL. One of the bigger moves that we had going on recently was Kirk Cousins moving from the Minnesota Vikings to the Atlanta Falcons. B, how did you feel about this move going forward for both sides?
For Kirk, obviously, he's made it, unapologetically clear. He's going to go wherever place offers him the most money when he's a free agent. He's really finessed the market for being not even an elite quarterback, but a solid quarterback. I assume, him going to the Falcons will be beneficial to both sides. That division is really a mid-tier QB division now that you got Baker Mayfield with the Bucks and Derek Carr with the Saints. So Kirk Cousins definitely a little better than those guys, but not that much better, honestly. Kirk's going to be efficient and get have good stats, which is a big plus because the Falcons did not have good quarterback play ever since Matt Ryan left. Not even Matt Ryan's last couple of years weren't good, so it's good for the Falcons. But you can't expect Kirk to be that guy to take you to the Super Bowl. Other guys are going to need to step up, and thankfully, this team has a bunch of guys who have hype, and they have a head coach who has hype, but pretty much nobody who's really proven it yet. So it's going to be interesting to see how this group collaborates. They definitely can win the division. I don't want to get far into the playoffs because, like I said, these guys aren't really accomplished yet at what they do, but seemingly they do have a lot of good, solid players and pieces to potentially have a good team. So I think they'll be a very exciting team to watch in 2024. And they might have ups and downs, but curious to see what they have more of. And like I said, their ceiling definitely is at least a division title.
Yeah, I got to agree with you there, B. Because the Falcons last year, I feel like we always talked about each game they went into, their issue was kind of quarterback play because their overall team was solid. And Kirk Cousins has a solid set of weapons there in Atlanta at his disposal. You got Bijan Robinson. Kyle Pitts may finally look like the top 5 pick that he was. And then you got Drake London still. So they do have some weapons there. So I think really it was the play calling and the quarterback play in Atlanta. So I think that was a solid move for him. And I don't really see anybody that can stand in their way in that division. I mean, the Buccaneers were very solid. But you kind of got to expect Baker to be at that level again next year, which I'm not sure. I mean, he has to prove it first, but I'm not sure if he can. And then the Panthers, we know what they are as of right now, and then the Saints are kind of an unknown. So, like you said, they have a good shot to win that division. And I think he does make them better. So I could see them as like a 9-10 win team winning that division and going to the playoffs.
Yeah, I would have to say that they're probably the favorite to win that division right now. Obviously, like Donald said, the Bucks feel like they're bringing a lot of their team back for the most part. Seems like they're going to kind of be the same-ish team, but I think this move for Atlanta does definitely kind of put them in the forefront just because of the talent that they have there. Bijan Robinson. Trying to remember who their second running back was. Algier, I believe his name is. Yeah, Tyler Algier. And then you got obviously Kyle Pitts he was talking about. So and a lot of weapons there. I think that even a bigger thing that they're talking about is, the fact that Arthur Smith is not there anymore calling plays. I think that's definitely big for them because he seemed like he was holding a lot of people back on this squad. So I think that that's going to be new for them. That might be good. The only thing that I'm kind of worried about with this move here is obviously Kirk Cousins coming off a pretty big injury there, lower leg injury. So we'll have to see if he kind of looks the same or looks similar as he did in Minnesota. But if he can, do that, I think the Falcons should definitely make the playoffs this year. So interesting for Falcons fans this season. So next up, we got Russell Wilson going to Pittsburgh. His time with the Broncos already over. B, how did you feel about this move for both sides?
I felt good about it from the Steelers side, definitely, because we're basically paying Russ. The Broncos are basically paying Russ to play for us, which is cool. Obviously, Russ's career in Denver weren't his best days. Second year, he improved a lot statistically, but I think from most people's perspective, he still did not look like that good of a quarterback, especially because he's had 3 seasons in a row now with a losing record dating back to his last year in Seattle. So it's kind of like, does this guy really have what it takes to win? But no better place to try to see even get back on track than by going to a team who hasn't had a losing record since 2003. So obviously, don't expect Russell Wilson to be the best QB in that division. I don't expect him to be the second best QB in that division. And I honestly don't expect him to be the third best QB in that division if Deshaun Watson can find himself again with that very talented bunch of weapons he has in Cleveland. But can Russell Wilson manage games? Absolutely. And is he an improvement compared to what the Steelers have had since Big Ben's last year? I'd say so. So I think this is a really good opportunity for Russell Wilson to resurrect his career. If he plays well, he might get a contract extension in Pittsburgh. I think Mike Tomlin is going to be a really good coach for him. He won't have someone like Sean Payton, yelling in his ear and expressing frustration with him throughout games. Because, as we all know, the defense is the backbone of the Steelers. They still will continue to be next year because the offense definitely won't be perfect or anywhere near. But it's good to have competent quarterback play, and he has the opportunity to prove that he can be that on a team that is a defensive first team. And he's definitely got some good running backs to rely on as well. He needs another receiver besides Pickens now that Deontay Johnson's gone. But if he's any bit as good as he showed at times last year, it shouldn't be hard for him to, keep Pittsburgh's streak alive. I don't know what the playoffs would include. I would hope to get a playoff win, but I think at the very least it keeps Pittsburgh at where they were at last year.
Yeah, I agree with the point you made, B, just about here how Russell Wilson is an upgrade over what you've had since Big Ben is retired. I definitely agree with that. I know these last few years has kind of been not what we've seen from Russell Wilson over like the course of his career up until 2 to 3 years ago. But I think the move to Pittsburgh was a good move for him just from the standpoint of I think this could almost be like a revitalized type of time for his career. He's been down. He's been counted out by a lot of people. But just now being able to go to Pittsburgh and being in the right building, the right situation where they have a winning culture. You don't really see Mike Tomlin openly criticize his players or, embarrass them publicly. So I just feel like that's somebody that can motivate him and kind of just be in his corner. And sometimes that's really what a player needs is that confidence. And I think with that confidence that Pittsburgh is giving him, just showing him like, we want you. And then with the defense, as you already mentioned, I think the Steelers will definitely be in play for the playoffs as they always are. So as you mentioned, you all just still do need another receiver, but I think this is definitely an all-around solid move for Russ.
On paper, I don't think it's the greatest move in the world, but I think, given the situation and that, like B said, the Broncos are practically paying for him to play for your team, I think that kind of makes it a better move in my opinion. Low risk, high reward here. You got, obviously a multiple-time Pro Bowler here behind center. Definitely better than what you had. It's definitely an upgrade and everything like that. So I can't see any reason why it's not a good move right now. And again, if it doesn't work out, low risk. You can get rid of him or you can bring in the next guy that we will be talking about here, which is Justin Fields going to Pittsburgh. B, how did you feel about this move when you first saw it? Were you surprised or how did you just overall feel about it for the team?
I knew it. Once they got Russell Wilson, I said – they're either going to trade for Justin Fields or get Ryan Tannehill as a backup. And I think they took the potentially more, exciting move there or, the move that could, generate them more towards the future. Justin Fields obviously, he had more bad days than good days in Chicago, but he also showed that he is one heck of an athlete. And obviously the player we saw in college, he was one of the best, college players. And that's why he had high hopes in the NFL. Just kind of went to a team that didn't have much offense. It didn't build any offense around him. And it was unfortunate circumstances for him. think this is a great opportunity for him to sit around behind a veteran quarterback, and if he has anything left, he can learn from him. And I ultimately think this could be Justin Fields' job in 2025 unless the Steelers win a playoff game this year with Russell Wilson, because obviously, biggest news in Pittsburgh other than the haven't had a losing season since 2003 is they haven't won a playoff game since 2016. So they're really trying to find that next guy who can help them win playoff games. And I think, Russell Wilson being on a 1-year contract and him being as old as he is might not be worth bringing back if, they don't get over that hump. So they might be able to use that 5th-year option on Justin Fields. And, if anything, hopefully they get a game or at least, something out of him this year. I'm sure with his speed, they can put him on some formations. I know you talk about Arthur Smith not being that good of a coordinator, but maybe he can, since he's a coordinator now, not a head coach, he can show kind of the skills that got him a head coaching job. Great opportunity for Justin Fields. Great opportunity for the Steelers. Sort of like it's not too far apart from the Falcons' move with Kirk Cousins. Definitely in a good position to better your team, but the ceiling is still a little questionable. That's pretty much all I got.
Yeah, similar to what I thought about the Russell Wilson move, I think this is a good move overall for Justin Fields, just in like a career aspect. I mean, in my opinion, he was improving each year in Chicago, but I just think the overall organization didn't really put the necessary pieces around him, kind of like how they're putting the pieces around what we all expect will probably be Caleb Williams, how they're getting him a receiver and offensive line, defensive help, things like that. So just going to Pittsburgh, I feel like learning behind Russell Wilson could be very, very beneficial for Justin Fields for like a year, kind of just sitting back and seeing what to do, what not to do, taking care of the football, because we know the type of athlete he is already. And the fact that, similar to Russell Wilson, Pittsburgh wanted Justin Fields, that I feel like that's a good thing for him as well, because as I mentioned, as an athlete, just when you feel wanted, it really just boosts your play, helps your play, knowing that you have the team and the coach in your corner. So I think this is an overall good career move for Justin Fields. And we may see him, as you mentioned, be in certain packages on the field this football season, kind of like how when Michael Vick first got to Philly, after his whole situation, how they kind of had him in packages and spurts. And I think from there, Justin Fields can definitely take off. So I'm interested to see where it go. But I think Pittsburgh was honestly maybe the perfect destination for him.
Yeah. Overall, I liked it. I do like it more than the Russell Wilson move, only because I do think that there's a chance that, B said in 2025, I think he could take over the job. I think he could possibly take it over this year, especially if Russell Wilson doesn't look good early, or like Russ doesn't look good early, plus an injury happens, and then Justin Fields has to play, and then you see him, have one of his spurts that he's had on the Bears where, he has 11 touchdowns in 3 weeks or whatever like that. And like he kind of just goes crazy. So it's very possible. I mean, I could see that happening. I didn't see Russell Wilson not being on the Broncos this early. So, I mean, I feel like really anything can happen here. So, Justin Fields can easily play. And then I think that this is like a future move for them too. Like, let's say Russell Wilson does have a fine season, but like doesn't want to come back on a low contract or whatever. Russell can go wherever he wants to play. And then Justin Fields can step right in. And then you have that guy for however many years. So Justin Fields is still extremely young. So, again, low risk, high reward. I think that you got 2 quarterbacks that were better than the guy that you had in there for fairly cheap, like I think less than $5 million, which is amazing. So, yeah, I mean, great job by the Steelers, man. Like I feel like that's what you should do in free agency, and that's what they did. So, awesome. I think it's a really good move for them. Next up, we're gonna move to the running back situation, and we got the Saquon Barkley move to Philly. Man, this was crazy. Obviously in the same division, that doesn't happen a whole lot often. So Giants fans are definitely coming at Saquon for that. B, how did you feel about this move when it happened? Were you shocked, and do you think that it changes Philly's overall outlook?
Man, it's just crazy. Jason Kelce retires, Fletcher Cox retires. You kind of think the Eagles not rebuilding, but losing kind of that veteran presence. And then Howie Roseman, being the crazy good GM he is, immediately gets Saquon. Probably makes those guys wish they could unretire. But honestly, the Eagles every offseason just seems like they make hella aggressive moves, and I don't understand, since they're paying Jalen Hurts so much. No mathematician or GM, but it's crazy to think that they always have enough to make all these moves. enough, and but the salary cap obviously did increase this year, as it always does. But damn, that's a good move. Saquon Barkley's going from driving in traffic because he never had an offensive line on the Giants to running behind the hogs of the Philadelphia Eagles. And they also signed Dickerson to a 4-year contract, so their offensive line is still really good without Jason Kelsey. Is the best, and they have a little bit of a different feeling at center now that he's not there after so many years. Yes, so it might not be quite as good, but this is definitely the best back they've had in a while. The last 2 years they had Swift and Miles Sanders, who both looked really good under them, but now you got Saquon, who's a beast of his own, and he still had a good year on the Giants last year, and has had a couple great years, and he's still fairly young, so they're probably getting him right before he hits that hill. Definitely could see him getting a couple good years out of the Eagles, and I think that makes him a contender. And as we all know, over the last several years, the Cowboys and Eagles kind of they go back and forth as division winners of the NFC East. So it technically is the Eagles' turn to win it in 2024. And being that the Cowboys haven't made any moves, I definitely could see the Eagles reclaiming that division title.
Yeah, Saquon to Philly, just as a Commanders fan, I mean, it's definitely nerve-wracking with the offensive line Philadelphia has, and the athlete that Saquon is. But I honestly think really the key to this move is because Philadelphia has always had a great rushing attack. I really think the key to this one is can Saquon stay healthy for one, and then for two, just will Philadelphia be willing to kind of take a lot of those carries and rushing touchdowns that Jalen Hurts gets around the goal line? Will they be willing to relinquish that and give it to Saquon? To give that money to a running back, I feel like you're going to pay him to, be that guy. But we all know how Philadelphia really likes to exploit Jalen Hurts and their brotherly shove. So it'll be interesting to see how they facilitate Saquon into their rushing attack with Jalen Hurts already being kind of like that red zone guy for them. But it'll definitely be interesting to see. But I think overall it's a great move as long as he can stay healthy.
Health is definitely big for this move, but I think that I don't really know why Philly made this move ultimately. I feel like they didn't. This isn't anything that they were missing technically. I feel like their rushing attack was fine. I think the big thing for them was their passing defense. They had one of the worst pass defenses in the NFL. So I mean, obviously they got Gardner Johnson back. I think that's a pretty big move for them. But I mean, Saquon definitely adds another dimension to the offense, so it'll be good. But I mean, I don't know if that was really the issue here. I mean, last year you had Jalen Hurts, you had AJ Brown, you had all these guys, and then you lost 5 of your last 6 games, and then got embarrassed by the Bucs in the playoffs. So, is this really what you're missing? No, I don't think so. But I mean, ultimately, I think it does help the offense. But I mean, the defense and the team overall just has to be better. So, I think this is probably a good step in the right direction, though. So, I like it for Philly. Next up, we got Derrick Henry going to the Ravens and helping out Lamar Jackson. B, how do you feel about this move?
I mean, personally, I hate it because I'm a Steelers fan. But if I'm going to be a football fan here, this is a great move for the Ravens. Obviously, we know that their season came to an end by the hands of the Chiefs, where they barely attempted to run the ball, even though they had one of the top rushing attacks in the league. Even though they've had one of the top rushing attacks for the last several years since they've had Lamar. I can't imagine they would have done that if they had Derrick Henry in the backfield. They probably would have grounded and pounded because he's that type of back. Ultimately, I feel like there's going to be times next year where this looks unstoppable. They're definitely going to have games where they blow weaker teams out just because the opposing defense won't be able to take the 1-2 punch of Lamar and Derrick Henry. It's a lethal QB-RB duo. Obviously, they need to get they don't have a lit receiving core. Zay Flowers showed some good things, and they did lose one of their best offensive linemen to the Lions. But I do think Derrick Henry's ran behind worse offensive lines in Tennessee. So I think the dual threat of Lamar and Derrick Henry just being a beast, not only with speed but with power, he should have some great games. Should definitely win a lot of games this year, and they definitely are competing for a championship.
Yeah, I agree with you. Kind of the only, I wouldn't really say concern, but I guess critique I have with this Derrick Henry move to Baltimore is Baltimore's running game was never their issue. you can kind of really fit any running back into their system, and they found a way to make it work with just the lethal weapon that Lamar Jackson is. It's really been their passing game, honestly. Receiver, as you mentioned, B, has been their issue for the past few years. And as we've seen with some of these playoff losses they had over the last 2 years, they haven't leaned on what's got there, their running game. They've kind of tried to air it out. So I feel like if that's going to be your game plan going into these playoff games, then you should definitely kind of try to upgrade your receiver position, because outside of Zay Flowers and Mark Andrews, they don't really have – Isaiah Likely is pretty solid, but they don't really have like any game breakers. They don't have anybody that you kind of step back and game plan for. Odell was a shell of himself. He's not the Odell that we once saw. And I feel like they didn't really utilize him that much either. Rashad Bateman, kind of the same thing. So I don't really think they needed another running back. I mean, of course, Derrick Henry's available. You can't turn that down. But at the same time, I'm not necessarily sure how this gets them over the hump. I think it could get them back to the same position they were in, like AFC Championship. But I don't know if it can get them over that hump that's necessary to win. They kind of don't have that game breaker to me on the perimeter that can change things for them.
I kind of feel in between how both of you guys feel. B was talking about how he doesn't like it because he's a Steelers fan. I just simply don't know if I like it. It's a nice move. Like I think it's a solid move at the end of the day. But like Dono said, they didn't really lose last year because their running game wasn't good. Like they were the number one rushing attack in the NFL. Like I don't understand how you get better than that. Like you can't really get better than number one at the end of the day. So and then we know when it came down to crunch time in that big playoff game versus the Chiefs, they forgot how to run the ball. And like it's like I don't know if having Derrick Henry on your team is like that reminder that hey, we're the number one rushing attack in the NFL. I feel like you should have done that before you went into the game. And like that Gus Edwards, while he's not a Derrick Henry name, he was tied for 5th for touchdowns last year. Like it's not like Gus Edwards was he wasn't trash by no means. He was one of the better backs in the NFL, especially by the end of the season. You had Keaton Mitchell coming in there giving you some stuff. You had who's the other guy? There's one more I'm missing.
Justice Hill, probably.
Justice Hill coming in there giving you some production. So like it's really not the running attack that was the issue here. It was the coaching at the end of the day because you kind of forgot who you were in the biggest game. I don't know if Derrick Henry is really going to help with that. I also don't know what version of Derrick Henry you're going to get here. I mean, he is still really good. He is better than your average running back, but I don't think that he is the Derrick Henry that he used to be of, damn near 2,000 yards and stuff like that. Like, I don't think he's that guy anymore, but I think he's good. And I think it'll be, I think that this team's going to have some of its moments like they did this year, where they're blowing the Chiefs out in the regular season, where they're beating some of these other teams that it's really impressive wins. But then when it comes playoff time, can you trust the Baltimore Ravens? I don't trust them. Derrick Henry's not going to make me trust them. And, yeah, that's how I feel about it. I think it looks good on paper. He'll look, Derrick Henry look kind of cool in purple with the black visor and stuff. I think that'll look really cool, but is it going to give you any wins? I don't really think so. Not at the highest level. So, I mean, a decent move, though. Next, we have DeAndre Swift to the Bears. Not a huge move, but just kind of overall what the Bears are doing is kind of interesting here. So, B, how did you feel about this move?
No, it's to keep it, short and sweet. Same as you. The Bears definitely look like they're trying to build something out. They had the number one pick, and they made a couple moves that we're going to, continue to talk about. I don't think they want to be that team that lacks an offensive identity. I think they're, tired of being the laughing stock of the league. They're still in a tough division, so they're going to have to, make a lot more moves. But I definitely think the arrow's kind of pointing up. And just on a side note for that division, I'd be a little scared if I were the Vikings because I think the three other teams are going in one direction while they're kind of lost in the sauce a little bit. So we'll see what happens there this year. But they could have a good draft. Who knows?
That's a very great point. DeAndre Swift to the Bears is a solid move. As we mentioned, I just feel like now the Bears are kind of trying to invest in their quarterback when they already had a young quarterback in Justin Fields that they could have invested and built around. But it's good to see they at least care about Caleb Williams, and they care about his longevity in his career. So I think DeAndre Swift going there is a solid move, and I think the Bears can definitely surprise some people going into next year. It really just all depends on how Caleb Williams comes out and plays, but it's going to be interesting to see.
Obviously not the biggest move of free agency. I just think that it is, improved from the three-headed monster that they had last year with Roschon Johnson, Khalil Herbert, and Dante Foreman. So I think it'll be better here. You got Swift, who was a clear number one this year for the Eagles. So definitely should shorten their a lot of people get chances for their run game. Next up, Josh Jacobs to the Packers. One of the more surprising moves that I saw. Not the sexiest place he could have gone, but honestly, I like the fit. So, B, how did you feel about it?
Yeah, and I'm not just saying it because of this move. I've kind of thought it ever since last year ended. I would not be surprised if the Packers have one of the best records in the NFL next year. They're the youngest team, and they have a lot of space to make moves. So that's why they made a move like this. I don't know if he's a huge upgrade on Aaron Jones, honestly, but do expect Jordan Love and the receivers and company to be better than they were last year, like throughout the year, even though Jordan Love had a pretty good year last year. It was kind of like his rookie year in a sense because it was his first year playing. So he did have some down moments. Still don't think he's going to be like Aaron Rodgers for them, but I still think he could be pretty damn good too. And the Packers are a really good organization. They're really good at developing quarterbacks and teams. And Matt LaFleur seems like he's done a heck of a job there since he's been their coach. So definitely could see this team, stacking a lot of wins next year, even though they'll be in a tough division.
Yeah, I was kind of surprised at first by the Josh Jacobs move because, as you mentioned, they had A.J. Dillon, Aaron Jones. But Josh Jacobs is a solid running back. He was putting up good numbers with the Raiders. He's tough. He's going to get you those tough yards. He's probably the best running back on that. He's for sure the best running back on that roster right now. But I feel like the Packers could still kind of use a change of pace back. I think they could get rid of A.J. Dillon and maybe get like a speed guy to kind of mix into the mix. But as you mentioned, B, I think the Packers will definitely be a team on the rise, and the NFC is actually looking like a very, very competitive conference coming into this year. But overall, I do like the Josh Jacobs to the Packers move. I think it's solid. Matt LaFleur will find a way to get the best out of him. Let me say that. Pause. But yeah, that's a good move.
First and foremost, AJ Dillon is trash. Second of all, you talked about if Josh Jacobs is better than Aaron Jones. I don't know if he's better necessarily, but I think that your best ability is availability. And Josh Jacobs is a guy that was on the field a lot last year and the year before when he led the league in rushing. So I feel like this is a pretty good move for them. I think that they're getting younger at the back position, which is always good. Aaron Jones had a hamstring injury. He was really in and out of the lineup. It seemed like, I think, if I remember correctly, he played the first 2 weeks, and then he was out for like 7+ weeks, comes back like the last 3 weeks of the season, and then goes crazy versus the Cowboys. So I think it was a really good time to sell high on Aaron Jones, and they did that, and they got him in Minnesota now. And I think that Josh Jacobs being on the Packers, he's good at pass catching. He's good at also just being a bell cow, and he can run up the middle as well. So you kind of get the best of both worlds with Josh Jacobs, which is a really good move for them. And then again, the Packers already have a bunch of really good tight ends, and like they got Christian Watson on the outside, a good receiver. So like they have a lot going for them. So they just have to keep making incremental moves like this, and they'll just continue to get better. So next up, we got Tony Pollard heading to the Titans. This is again not the sexiest move. This is actually more interesting to me for the Cowboys than it is for the Titans. So how do you feel about this move, B?
I mean, pretty hard if I'm a Titans fan to excite me that I lost Derrick Henry and I got Tony Pollard as his replacement. But obviously, the Titans are in rebuild mode. They have a new head coach now. They officially have a new quarterback, even though they gave Will Levis like half the season last year, like he's their quarterback. Moving on, we'll get to Calvin Ridley in a little bit, but obviously it's a new look team. It's not the A.J. Brown, Derrick Henry, Ryan Tannehill, Mike Vrabel Titans anymore. So we'll see how they are. I'd say besides the Texans, the rest of the AFC South could be pretty exciting. Titans are kind of like the least, probably have the least expectations out of the 4 teams in that division, but they could still be an exciting team. They got some pieces, still some veterans on defense, but specifically to Tony Pollard, just a downgrade to Derrick Henry, honestly. Like, I don't know how that would excite me if I'm a Titans fan. I mean, I guess we got a running back in lieu of what we lost, but I mean, tell them if you're a Titans fan who's raving and raving over this, let me know, because I don't think you exist.
Yeah, I'm gonna have to agree with Mitch on this one. I think this says more about the Cowboys than the Titans. Tony Pollard's a solid player, but the Titans, as you mentioned, B, they're kind of on a rebuild. So I understand why they let Derrick Henry go and kind of went for a younger guy. But I just really think this is more so about the Cowboys and kind of what their plan and what their direction is, because outside of Dak and CeeDee Lamb, I don't really know who they have on offense that, it's kind of a game breaker. Even though Tony Pollard had a down year last year, I still think he has some, like a little bit of value to the Cowboys. But at the same time, as a running back, you got to go get your payday. So I feel like the payday he got from Tennessee, he wouldn't have gotten from Dallas. So a good move for Tony Pollard personally, but from a team standpoint, I'm not sure what the Cowboys, really gain from losing him. And I'm not sure what the Titans gain either. I mean, they get a solid running back in this, but they already had a running back in Tajay Spears, so I think was pretty decent filling in for Derrick Henry when he was out. So it'll be interesting to see.
Yeah, that was the weirdest thing for me, was kind of seeing the Titans double down on the pass catching running back as opposed to somebody that could break the tackles. You already have Tajay Spears, who was already kind of primarily playing the pass catching back role last year and seemed to be pretty good at it. So then you bring in Tony Pollard to kind of stunt all the growth that he's just had. So it's weird. And then the Cowboys, obviously their running back one right now is Deuce Vaughn, not going to cut it. So they're going to have to hit the draft pretty hard here. They could be one of those Blake Corum teams, which honestly I didn't think was in the cards for them. But, I mean, that's kind of where we're at right now. So I think one thing that the Cowboys have done well that I don't think they get enough credit for it is their drafting. Their drafting has actually been pretty good. They seem to do pretty good at that. So, it seems like if nobody's really available in free agency for you to get, or you don't want to, invest in Derrick Henry at this point in his career, then I think that is the way to go. And I think that they will draft a running back. They'll have to. Deuce Vaughn is your number one. It's not going to cut it. So that's kind of what I got from this move. I guess decent move for the Titans. They're trying to just be decent at running back. So that's how you do it. You get Tony Pollard. I kind of added this one as we were going, just because it was kind of interesting when I saw it was Austin Eckler to Washington. They obviously already had Brian Robinson, who was really good for them last year. They get rid of Antonio Gibson. So how did you guys feel about this move real quick? Donald, you can start. This is your team.
I'm gonna keep this one short. Austin Eckler, if healthy, at minimum, he's gonna get catches and he's gonna score touchdowns. So I just feel like if he's healthy, this is a solid move for Washington. It brings a good dynamic with Brian Robinson, who, as you mentioned, had a great year last year. Antonio Gibson was a solid player, but really fumbling was kind of his downfall here. He had terrible time fumbles that would kind of kill momentum or really kill drives. And I don't think Austin Eckler really has any fumble issues, and he was solid as the lead back with the Chargers. But I think as a 1-2 combo of him and Brian Robinson, it can kind of give him that rest, but still unleash him to be the solid player he was, like the third down back type of guy, can spell for a few rushes here and there. But I think that was a solid move for Washington, especially with the money they paid him. So I don't mind it. I think it was solid.
B.
Yeah, I thought it was a solid move. He wasn't overpaid. Like you guys said, he can catch, he can run. He's not the biggest dude in the world, but he doesn't need to be the premier back there. So as long as he takes care of the football, it looks like Washington's, building a little something. I think new head coach, new ownership, new GM. I think, the arrow points up. Just might take up a season to fully see. But if they can be patient and trust the process, I think, they could potentially have a bright future.
Yeah, it seems like the Eagles and the Commanders are trending upward. Like the Cowboys and the Giants might be turning backward a little bit here. So it'll be interesting. I do think the Commanders could possibly finish better than the Cowboys this year. And hot take. For the wide receivers now, going to have to kind of move fast here. We're kind of a little bit over. Keenan Allen to the Bears. How did you guys feel about this move? And actually a little bit more, how do you feel about this for the Chargers?
Ooh, well, I feel like it immediately sent a signal to me that the Chargers don't think this year is the year. I know they'll probably draft a wide receiver with their pick, but no veteran leadership, obviously losing Mike Williams and Keenan Allen. Keenan Allen's going to have to get used to the cold weather because he's been a California boy his whole life. Cal Berkeley, San Diego Chargers, Los Angeles Chargers, but very solid veteran. I almost compare him to Mike Evans, not the same type of player, but has almost 1,000 every year of his career when he doesn't get hurt, or has 1,000 when he stays healthy. It's kind of the guy who's been in the league for a while, who's super reliable. But Chicago will be different from him. He'll have a different quarterback, but it sounds like he'll have a good rookie QB. So he play a full season in Chicago. I can see him getting 1,000 and continuing to ball and make a case for possibly being a Hall of Famer. He needs to have more relevance on whatever his team is, though, and they need to make a relevant run for him to get that accolade, I think.
Yeah, Keenan Allen was a solid pickup for the Bears, especially with the draft compensation that they gave away to get Keenan Allen, because just over his career, he's just always been one of those guys that as long as he's healthy, he gets open and he catches the ball. Keenan Allen, I feel like as long as he's healthy for Chicago, he can still get at 90 to 100 catches, 1,200 yards, and some touchdowns. So I think this is a quarterback's best friend, and especially with a rookie quarterback coming in there, that was a very solid move for them, especially since they still have DJ Moore too, so all the sole focus can be on Keenan Allen. So the solid pickup for the Bears, very solid.
Yeah, man, Keenan Allen and DJ Moore is nasty. That's all I got to say.
Yeah.
I just think it's funny how the Bears are doing all of this now when, again, they had Justin. Anyway, we'll move on. Hollywood Brown to the Chiefs, man. I think that's a great move, man. B, how did you feel about this when you saw the news?
I immediately said Hollywood Brown damn well better have the best year of his career. I think he has a great opportunity to. I know he doesn't catch everything, but he definitely has good playmaking ability, and he's playing with Patrick Mahomes, and Travis Kelce still has some dog left in him too. So, and Rashee Rice was coming along towards the end of last year, so maybe the Chiefs will have a decent receiving core this year. Definitely like it. He's definitely got the wheels. Hollywood Brown, and Patrick Mahomes loves, those speedsters. So, Chiefs on a quest to three-peat. I can't bet against them at this point after what I've seen the last 2 years. So I trust whatever they do. They look great from a QB standpoint, head coach standpoint, management standpoint. Their defense is really good now too. So hail to the Chiefs, I guess.
Yeah, I think the Hollywood move to the Chiefs will either unlock Rashee Rice even more, or Hollywood could have a career year, because I believe he was the Ravens' last 1,000-yard receiver until he was traded to the Cardinals. And even on the Cardinals, he was still putting up decent numbers with their inconsistencies at quarterback with the Kyler Murray injury. So to just pair Hollywood with Patrick Mahomes and then the other weapons they have on offense, along with Andy Reid still at head coach, this could be a great career move for him, and we could possibly see him getting a high payday next offseason just with whatever type of year he puts together here with the Chiefs. So I think that was a great move for Hollywood in his career, like as a whole.
This move alone, I already liked. It's the Rashee Rice part of this for me that kind of puts this over the top. The fact that Rashee Rice was kind of coming along at the end of the season, looked like he could be a number one, and then you bring in Hollywood Brown, like you have a legit. Even though I think that this is actually on other teams probably like a 2-3 duo, I think on this team, when they've been able to maximize the stuff that they have at their positions, this is a great 1-2 for the Chiefs. And then obviously it seems like in the last couple of years, it kind of just seems like with the Chiefs in general, they like a committee. Like they like a lot of running backs, so they like a lot of wide receivers. I think now that they kind of have their guys set, seems like Hollywood Brown and Rashee Rice would be the main receivers, and then you got Pacheco as the main running back. So it'll be interesting to see everybody settle into their positions. But, I mean, on paper, they look as good as ever. So, yeah, I really got to like this move for the Chiefs. Calvin Ridley to the Titans is the next one we'll talk about. Obviously not a huge move. I guess this is more about Jacksonville than I would say about Tennessee. How do you feel about this one?
Yeah, it looks like Jacksonville wasn't a great place last year. That definitely collapsed towards the end of last year, and that's kind of what will happen when you collapse. Players will leave. Trevor Lawrence kind of a question mark, honestly, for me heading into 24. Not just because Mac Jones is there is clearly a backup now, but Trevor Lawrence for the number one pick, for as good as he's been his whole life, he hasn't really shown it in the NFL, and I don't think it's a great sign that Calvin Ridley left to go to a potentially worse team. Also for the Titans, kind of interesting that they could have paid A.J. Brown this much money, but they decided to pay it to Calvin Ridley a couple years later. Anyway, just goes to show you that they didn't make the best organizational decisions when it was important to, and it kind of blew up their team. But Titans will be an interesting team, like I said earlier. Pretty much, the Texans are the only team I kind of trust in that division to, make the playoffs because of their strong play. But hey, maybe Will Levis with Tony Pollard and Calvin Ridley will do well. Only time will tell.
Yeah, I was kind of surprised by this move. I would have assumed Calvin Ridley would have just stayed in Jacksonville. Um, I don't really know how to feel about it because the Titans are kind of an unknown to me at this moment, and I just feel like the AFC South division in particular, um, the Colts were kind of on the cusp of being a playoff team, and that was with Anthony Richardson missing almost all of the year. Gardner Minshew was quarterbacking them, and then we know what we saw with the Texans and C.J. Stroud, who will probably only get better. And then you still got Jacksonville, who, although they didn't make the playoffs, I think they could be due for a bounce back because they are well coached. I just feel like they can kind of use an influx on the outside, especially with Calvin Ridley gone now. So this move is kind of surprising to me, but I'm never against somebody getting paid. Calvin Ridley did miss a year due to his gambling suspension, so he may just be kind of recoup on the losses and kind of just go out with his career on the sunset. But who knows? So we'll see. But I don't really know how to feel about this move. I guess it's a decent move.
It's okay. I mean, DeAndre Hopkins and Calvin Ridley. I mean, all right, it's cool.
Yeah, it's
Like
cool.
I
Yeah.
said, the Titans, it's like they're doing enough to be able to say that they're trying, but they're really not trying. Next up, man, Deontay Johnson to the Panthers. This isn't a big deal either. Adam Thielen was obviously the main receiver last year. That's the only reason that this is news. They have somebody that isn't as old as Adam Thielen, and yeah. So
Honestly,
anybody else have anything?
I honestly think it's a bigger deal for the Steelers, like not having that number 2 receiver after Pickens.
Yeah,
They obviously trust they can get that in the draft. Obviously, Deontay Johnson, he's not like losing Antonio Brown. He's not like losing Santonio Holmes. And, we seem to have, made up for losing big name receivers in the past. He's a really good route runner, but just cannot catch the ball. You cannot rely on someone who cannot catch the ball. So even though I'm thankful for his time in Pittsburgh and he showed he loved the Steelers, I don't think it's the hardest thing to make up for, but they need to address it. They do need another receiver because that is a void to fill. Oh, and hopefully, Bryce Young for himself can not be as sorry as he was last year because he had such a sorry receiving core.
Yeah, my only comment is I commend the Panthers for at least trying to help Bryce Young, but they still need a lot of other pieces to really be a decent team. Their offensive line is still god awful. They really just need a full team. It's a decent move, but they still need a lot of help.
Yeah, absolutely. They definitely need a lot of help. Mike Williams to the Jets. Again, not the biggest move. I think this is kind of bigger again for the Chargers and then maybe for Aaron Rodgers just because they're getting a little bit of help at receiver, but they got Garrett Wilson already. So low risk, high reward for me. How do you guys feel about this one?
I feel the same way. It's just another name. I do think, Garrett Wilson was kind of like their only, reliable receiver last year. I know Alan Lazard's okay, but Mike Williams is the bigger name. We'll see how he does coming back from the injury.
Yeah, definitely need to see how Mike Williams shakes back. But I also think the Jets were in need of a wide receiver too. Allen Lazard, Randall Cobb, whoever else they had opposite Garrett Wilson. That's just not it. So Mike Williams is definitely an upgrade, but obviously health would be the biggest factor here. But as long as he's healthy, I think Aaron Rodgers can make any receiver play better than what they are, play up to a certain expectation. So I think it'll be okay.
Donald did say he wants to see Mike Williams shake back. No pause. That was crazy. Next up,
we know that.
Too late, buddy. Too late.
We know that's a pause. We know that's a pause. Come on.
You're wilding, buddy. You're wilding. Jerry Jeudy to Cleveland. Amari Cooper already their number 1 receiver. They have a number 3 kind of disguising as a number 2 here. How do you guys feel about this move?
For the Browns, I think it's a good move. I still think the way their season ended last year was pretty god awful. But there was one thing I learned from them last year is they almost, and I hate to ever compare them to a team like the 49ers, but I do think they're that type of team that you could put a lot of quarterbacks in that system and they still could win games. I think, them playing with 5 quarterbacks last year kind of proved that. And they got quite a QB room this year with Deshaun and Jameis Winston. So I think, you want to give those guys as many weapons as possible to make up for their, inconsistencies and stuff like that. But I do think, this is a locker room and a team that you can put a lot of quarterbacks in and they can win games because they have such a talented offensive line, running backs, receivers, tight end. and they have a really good defense last year too. So be interesting to see how the Browns compete in the AFC North this year.
Yeah, I think this move is more so dependent on the Browns quarterback play. Because they have the weapons, they have Njoku, Amari Cooper, they got Nick Chubb. So they have the offensive line, like they have everything offensively. I just feel like it comes down to quarterback play. They had the number one defense in the league last year. So if Deshaun Watson can even be somewhat of the player he was in Houston, then I think this is a very solid move for Jerry Jeudy. But if we see the Deshaun Watson we've seen the last few years in Cleveland, then I'm not really sure what we're going to get from that Cleveland team.
This move doesn't really do anything for me, if I'm being honest. Jerry Jeudy was already a number 2 for the Broncos and was trash. So this doesn't give me any hope. If Deshaun Watson is any semblance of Joe Flacco from last year, they'll be decent. If not, trash. So, yeah, that's kind of what we got here. Last thing I wanted to ask you guys, what does Kirk Cousins leaving Minnesota mean for Justin Jefferson? Is he going to be staying there? Where does he go? Are the Chiefs an opportunity for him? Is that realistic?
I feel like it's just more likely he's going to be a Viking. I know the situation in Minnesota doesn't look great in a winning perspective for the next couple of years, but the reason Kirk Cousins ultimately left and he wasn't offered as much money in Minnesota as he was in Atlanta is because they want to give Jay Jettas the bag and make him the highest paid receiver of all time. It's going to be pretty hard for him to leave a team and city that offers him to be the highest paid receiver of all time. He sounds like he wants to win, but he's also a wide receiver at the end of the day. He wants to get paid and he wants to get the ball. And I do think he's one of those receivers that a lot of quarterbacks can get the ball to. He's that talented.
Yeah, I think Kirk Cousins leaving more so meant they had more money to pay Justin Jefferson because they wouldn't be able to commit money to both of those guys. So I feel like the Vikings, especially trading back into the first round, will try to package their first round picks to trade up and get the quarterback that they want. So I think all this really means is Justin Jefferson they have more money to offer him, and he'll probably be in Minnesota. I say for the next 3 to 4 years, he'll be there for the foreseeable future.
So you do think that they get a rookie QB here? And that's
yeah.
Okay, cool. Yep, that's good. Sam Darnold is trash. Last thing, guys, just a couple notes here for everybody. Backup QBs that were moved. We're going to talk about this more, but obviously we went a little bit over time. So just going to roughly go over it. Mac Jones went to Jacksonville. Sam Howell where's he at?
Seattle.
He is with Seattle. Jimmy G, the backup for the Rams now. Some defensive players that were on the move. Christian Wilkins to the Raiders. Patrick Queen headed to the Steelers. Brian Burns to the Giants. Xavier McKinney to the Packers. Devin White to the Eagles. And Bobby Wagner to Washington. Last but not least, Aaron Donald also calls it a career after 10 NFL seasons. I kind of guess we'll go around for this one. What do you guys want to say about Aaron Donald and his career?
I think after LT, Lawrence Taylor, I think he probably is the second best defensive player of all time. 10 years isn't a whole lot, but he got his ring, and I guess he walked away from the game healthy. And even though the Rams, are showing some, resurgence now with a couple of the players on their roster like Puka, I just think he didn't see a ring in their sight in the very near future to, keep playing on. So very, very happy if you're a team in the NFC West, so you don't have to put up with Aaron Donald because he is a force to be reckoned with and had one heck of a career.
Yeah, Aaron Donald, clear Hall of Famer. There's not much to say about the guy. The only thing I can say, I wish he would have retired last year, and him and Brady could be in the same Hall of Fame class, which would be pretty cool. But he's arguably one of the best ever. Definitely the best defensive player of our generation. I mean, you could argue between him and J.J. Watt who was better, but I'm gonna give the edge to Aaron Donald just based off his health and how he was there year in and year out, even when the Rams weren't that competitive. So glad to see he was able to go out with the Super Bowl ring and ride off into the sunset while he's still young and healthy. So salute to Aaron Donald on a great career.
Agreed. I kind of think a little bit more guys should retire this way, kind of a little bit younger, accomplished a good amount in their careers and just kind of willing to walk away on their own. So I think that's kind of cool in its own way. So definitely a good career for Aaron Donald. I mean, if you called him the greatest defensive player of all time, it's not a crazy hot take. I feel like Aaron Donald actually may have had a couple years better than Lawrence Taylor. So if you look at the numbers, you'll see, man. So definitely calling it a career. So happy for Aaron Donald, and yeah, wishing the best going forward. But that is going to do it for this edition of the God Next podcast, man. Hope you guys enjoyed the episode. Make sure you like, comment, subscribe, man. Make sure you comment, your favorite free agency / trade moves so far. And we look forward to the NFL season, man. We'll catch y'all next time.